What is up, YouTube? I'm starting a new series, Beginner Hero Guides for Deadlock. Make sure to pay attention to the chapters that I have included in the video if you want to skip to a certain piece of information. Today, we'll be taking a look at Wraith. Since this is the first video of the series, I did want to include two little sections: why I'm creating the series and who I am. I've been playing too much Deadlock lately, and I feel the need to share what I have learned in a format that is well suited for those new to the game, because I have noticed a lack of this kind of information on YouTube in general. Deadlock seems to be a MOBA first and a shooter second. Therefore, I feel like a good candidate because I come from a long MOBA background. I do have a disgusting amount of time on Dota 2, for example. Now that you know why I'm making this series, and you know a little bit more about my background, let's begin. First, we begin with Wraith's abilities here. First, we have Card Trick, Project Mind, Full Auto, and Telekinesis. To give a rough overview of them, this throws cards, you can teleport away, this buffs your rate of fire and damage, and this will keep people isolated for you to kill. Let's get a little bit more in depth on them because you will need this kind of information here. We're joining the sandbox so we can charge up our one. Your number one ability is cards. You can build up charges by shooting enemies or by shooting creeps that then, as you can see on the top of my head here, are displayed on how many charges you have, and same thing down here. Let's say that I level this up. Now you have 2 charges. That's the idea behind that. Keep in mind that if you shoot an enemy, you will gain more charge quicker than if you're shooting a creep. And as you saw, I'm at 29 bullets and I was able to build a full charge. Meanwhile, with creeps, I'm going to finish this whole magazine and I won't even build a full charge. It'll be very close, but it's not possible. So as you can see, you're basically building twice the amount of charge on a hero and an enemy hero than on the creeps. Keep that in mind. Also, let's say that you throw this out, okay? I'm building up a charge here. Notice how much more builds up by shooting at the head, because it does scale off of damage, bullet damage, versus when I am shooting at the body here, so I'm doing less damage. Notice how I'm at 27, 29, that's around how much it'll take. But if you're shooting to the head, I'm at 36 bullets, and now I have a full charge instead. So it does scale off of damage, so keep that in mind. Now let's keep reading this. So it does 80 damage, you have 1 charge at level 1, you will gain another charge when you level it up, you will gain 50 damage when you level it up again, and at the last level, you will gain plus 50 card summon rate. Now a very important piece about this ability is that you can control exactly where it goes, you can curve it, you can do whatever you want to it. Bam. So as you just saw, I kind of used it like a boomerang here and had it come around through this side. So you can use that. You're able to use that to your advantage by, let's say that there's somebody behind this here for some reason, or just behind this column here, and you can't really shoot at them somehow. So you throw a card out, you wait until it passes by, and then you can have it return and hit whoever is behind that, because it will be following your crosshair. That is very important to keep in mind. And that's usually how you would be using it in the laning phase. Remember, people will be behind cover, so you want to try to curve it if possible. Now let's move on to the second ability, which is Project Mind, which is actually just a teleport. It has a 25-meter range with a 48-second cooldown. As you level it up, it improves by giving you, at the first level, plus 15-meter cast range. At the second level, it gives you a 300-bullet shield for 8 seconds after you teleport, and the shield amount scales with the spirit power. Keep that in mind. At the last level, you will get a huge reduction in cooldown, which is very good to have. Now as you use it, when you hit your 2 ability, notice here how sometimes you can get blocked off depending on how close you are to the camera, everything. Let's say that I want to teleport here. If I am just a little bit too far to the left, I am now completely blocked. You really want to be careful with that when you're teleporting. Secondly, the way that you really want to use this is mainly as an escape tool. You do not want to be ganking coming in and ganking somebody with this if you can help it, because you won't have a way to get out. Remember that the cooldown is 48 seconds. That is a long time in MOBA terms. So if you use it to jump in, you will be in trouble if you need to get out. Then your number 3 ability, let's read that. Temporarily boosts your fire rate. Nearby allies receive half of the fire rate bonus. At level 1, you get a negative 14-second cooldown. At level 2, you get plus 5 spirit damage per bullet. At the last level, you get a plus 35% bullet lifesteal. It does have a 25-meter radius around you, and it has a fairly long cooldown. It also only lasts for about 5 seconds, but that's all you really need for it. Now notice the part that I said that it will affect your nearby allies, and notice how it will affect creeps too. If you see this little ring, this little purple, that's how you know that you have the buff on your teammates. So not only does it affect your hero teammates, it will also affect your creeps. Now keep in mind that full auto, even if you don't have it leveled up to that level 2 here where you get the +5 spirit damage per bullet, you will be dealing spirit damage already. Right now, because I have 0 spirit damage, I'm not really going to be dealing any of that. But let's say that I buy an ability here, something that will give me spirit power. Let's say Quicksilver Reload, which is a very good item for this build. When I use my 3 ability, you can actually see a 0 coming up, but if we hover over it, you'll see that it's 0.8. They just don't show the 0.8, but you are dealing spirit damage here. That's going to be very useful for later. Just keep in mind that your number 3 ability will deal spirit damage no matter what, as long as you have a little bit of spirit ability. Then on your number 4, which is your ultimate, you have Telekinesis. This has a 20-meter range, it lasts for 1.25 seconds, and it has a very long cooldown of 95 seconds at level 1. It says, lift an enemy hero into the air, stunning them for a short period of time. When the lift ends, the target receives telekinesis damage. This damage does scale off of spirit power. At level 1, you will get a big cooldown reduction of -28 seconds. At level 2, the duration will be larger by 0.5 seconds. And at the max level, which is the most important level for this one, instead of it being a small little radius, you will actually get a whole circle around you that you don't even have to aim. It's all around you for that whole 20-meter range there. Let's reset my hero here. Let's go back so you can see the difference. Here you have a single selection here, so you cannot pick any more than one person, and it's up to a 20-meter range here. And then when we level it up all the way, that same range, but in a circle all around you now. So you do not even have to be looking at them. It will grab everybody. This is very good to use when you're in a team fight, for example, at the max level. But when you don't have it leveled up all the way, you of course want to use this in a way that you are walking in, they won't see you, because it does have a very slow projectile speed. Let me show you a little bit more of that. So this guy is running. The more he runs, the longer it takes for that to get to him. So because it takes so long, there are certain heroes that you have to watch out for, that if they're able to run quicker than that projectile, the projectile will never reach them. So you do want to use this in a way that is maybe as close to them as possible so that they can't escape. And of course, the way that you want to use this is by, as soon as you lift them up, you want to aim for the head as much as possible because you deal extra damage to the head. Okay, so now that we've done all the abilities for Wraith, now we want to check out the builds. I'm using this build, which is a copy of a build that I found publicly called Damage Dealer, which is this one here. It has 31,000 likes here. I created my own version of it by copying that build and changing out a couple things here. And now for the first couple of items, which is just very early on in the game, the $500 items here are the basic magazine, extra charge, monster round, healing right, and sprint boots. The most important item here at the beginning of the game is of course extra charge. That way you have an extra charge here for your card trick to make sure that you can actually just bully whoever is in the lane against you. An extra charge will always be great to have, especially in the beginning early phases. Monster rounds will help you do more damage against your creeps, and as a beginner, you might really want to know that if you push out the lane quicker, the faster you'll be able to destroy the tier 1 turrets, which are the guardians here. Also, this might be a little bit more advanced, but as soon as you push out the lane, let's say that you kill every one of the enemy creeps, you can then move on to the jungle. This will also help you clear out the jungle quicker. Basic magazine, very good for her so that she can increase her magazine size, and it will help your weapon damage, of course. Healing right, very useful because you can stay in the lane longer. The longer you're in the lane, the more souls you will get. Sprint boots, because you'll have an increased sprinting speed, which is very useful to have, and of course it gives you +4 weapon damage and such. On the second tier of items here, we have Quicksilver Reload. This is probably the most important one to have because you can activate it on your card trick here. The whole idea is that if you have wasted all your bullets here, instead of having to go through the long, slow reload process, all you can do is just throw out a card because you did use the item on it. And now instead of reloading here, I can just press 1, and now my ammo's back to full. This essentially increases your magazine to 2x whatever it was before. Then, Swift Striker is extremely useful because of the fire rate buff and the +10% ammo. Anything that will increase our ammo count is good, and this increasing our fire rate will make it so that our charges build up quicker, and we're going to be dealing much more damage in general just because it is a weapon damage base upgrade. Bullet Lifesteal is extremely good for your ability to sustain yourself and to farm the jungle. Improved cooldown is extremely useful because then your telekinesis will have a much easier cooldown. Bullet Resist Shredder, very useful to have because your E here is always dealing spirit damage this will always be going off, as long as you have your 3 active, or even using your card trick. Of course, some survivability items are always bullet armor and spirit armor. It really just depends on the enemy. Usually spirit armor is more useful than bullet armor, but it just depends on your enemy. As you can see on my side here, the little orange section is your weapon damage, the little purple is your spirit damage. A lot of people are gonna have more weapon than bullet, or the other way around, so you just want to adjust. If it's more purple, then you want to go for your spirit armor. If enemies have more orange here, then you want to go for bullet armor. Next, we're getting to the mid-range of the upgrades here. We have things like Tesla Bullet, Intensifying Magazine, and Titanic Magazine. So Tesla Bullets will shock your enemies around you whenever you hit a bullet, and it can jump twice. This means that you'll have a much easier time clearing waves, and you will also have a much easier time clearing neutral camps. As you saw that little bolt of lightning, that's what it looks like here. Let's do it on the next wave so you can get a better view. And we're here. That little bolt of lightning that keeps triggering here is the procs. So this will help you farm the jungle as efficiently as possible and push out lanes so that the enemies have to deal with you. Next, we have Intensifying Magazine here. It says that as long as you're shooting your weapon damage will be increasing. It will also give us ammo and more weapon damage. This is very good for somebody like Wraith because you have 123 bullets. That means that as long as you hold down the left click, you will be gaining more and more damage. It will start out at like 12, 13, 14, 15. There we go, 16. Does it reach 17? A couple of them are doing 17, 18. Here we go. Yeah, 17, 18. It just depends on how many bullets you have. The more you hold down the button, the more damage you will be doing. Titanic Magazine will increase your magazine size, which as you just saw with Intensifying Magazine, the bigger the magazine size, the more damage you can be dealing. Combining that with the reload, the faster reload from your Quicksilver reload here, you'll be doing insane amounts of damage. So let's say that I get down to about 20 bullets or so, and then I use my 1 here, and now my damage can continue increasing here. So now we're at 18. I see like a 35 every once in a while, but that's due to the other procs. So in general, you're just dealing more and more and more damage the longer you hold down your left click. Superior cooldown is also a very good ability to put on your telekinesis, because the more times you can do this to people, the better. Then you have your improved bullet armor and improved spirit armor. Depending on which one you got here, you will get these. You can get both too. I always usually get both in the end, but if you're prioritizing, you'll want to pick whichever one is the biggest threat according to your tab here on the enemy side. At the end of the game, you'll be left buying these types of items here. Lucky Shot will make it so that your bullets have a chance to be empowered, causing them to deal bonus damage and slow on hit. There's a 35% chance that this procs, and you will notice if it procs the Lucky Shot, because it will have a bit of a yellow effect and some little down arrows if somebody gets hit by it. That right there. 35% chance means that it's almost guaranteed on whoever you're shooting. Just like that. It will also have this little sand clock thing here, but this is how you know that it actually triggered on somebody. It's that yellow effect is it. Whenever that happens, you get 90% bonus damage and 30% movement slow. Then Vampiric Burst is very good to have because it grants you lifesteal, fire rate, and ammo whenever you activate it. It is a 28-second cooldown, and it is affected by your other cooldown reduction items. Whenever you do use this, you will be getting plus 50% ammo, which is huge, 100% bullet lifesteal, and 40% fire rate. This all lasts for 4.5 seconds. Silencer will make it so that for your next 4 seconds, all your bullets will immediately apply silence. Silence prevents targets from using abilities, which is very good to have against a lot of those heroes like Haze, for example, because you'll be shutting them down quite efficiently with this. Next, another active ability here is Curse. This is amazing against characters like Haze and Kelvin, for example, because this curses an enemy, interrupting them, silencing them, disarming them, and preventing item usage. So as long as this is going off on them, they will not be able to do anything at all. This lasts for a whole 3.25 seconds here. So if somebody is doing a little bit too much, if you buy a curse, which is a late game item of course, you will be able to shut them down extremely efficiently. Next, you have Unstoppable. This makes it so that you yourself cannot be shut down, and it will last 6 seconds. This suppresses all negative status effects, and you become immune to stun, silence, sleep, root, and disarm. farm. So nobody can touch you for the 6 seconds with their abilities, for example. You will still take bullet damage, but that's not that big of an issue because a lot of the time, usually when you're buying this, it is to stop people from stunning you, rooting you, disarming you, because that will be happening a lot. Lastly, as a late game item, you definitely want to get something like Inhibitor here because you get bonus health, bonus weapon damage, but most importantly, your bullets apply a slow and they do reduce the outgoing damage on hit for enemy players. This debuff will last 2.5 seconds and it will keep reactivating the more you hit them. This is great at the late game stages because then people like Haze, for example, I'm using Haze as an example for everything here just because there's a lot of people that play her, they won't be able to deal as much damage in general and they won't be able to run away as quickly either because of movement slow. Now let's talk about the 3 different phases of the game here. Early game, which is otherwise known as the laning phase, you really want to deny as many creeps as you can possibly deny. So whenever you see one of these little things, just try to shoot it. One of the yellow ones, they're actually more important to get than your own blue ones. That is because you're actually getting rid of about half of the total amount of gold during the laning phase that the enemy could get. Now during the laning phase, aside from denying the enemy souls, you really want to push out the lane as much as possible while you're still harassing the enemy. This is because your other objective in the laning phase is not only to make the other fall behind, but you also want to destroy this guardian, the walker, as quickly as you possibly can. That is because it lets you get rid of the enemy item shop that will be on the side, and it will also help your team control more of the map. The more map your team owns, the better for your team in general. Now if you've already pushed the lane really far, because your creeps do a lot of damage to the guardian, you actually want to farm the small camp as much as possible too, but that's a little bit more advanced. This is for beginners, so just keep that in the back of your head. Don't worry about it too much for now. Most importantly though, during the laning phase, survive. Do not die. That will actually help your team out the most. Survival is the most important piece that you can possibly do in this game, because the more time that you are dead, the less time you're doing stuff around the map. Now for the mid game, you want to farm as much of the camps as you possibly can. Farming camps will give you a lot of gold, a lot of souls I mean, and the more souls the better. You want to hit the jungle just as much as possible after you push out your lanes, and then you go for enemy heroes that are all alone. Because Wraith is such an amazing 1v1 hero, you really want to use that to your advantage. But just like last time, you want to survive as much as possible. During the mid game, you really only want to farm and join fights, team fights, only whenever your ultimate ability is off cooldown, or maybe if your team absolutely needs you, for example like the mid boss or something. But aside from that, just be farming. Do not really do much else. Just farm as much as you possibly can. Then on the late game, you want to use your ultimate ability as much as possible because it is in a radius. You actually really just want to be using this all the time. Your cooldown will also be much shorter than before because you have all these cooldown items like super cooldown for example, which means that your ultimate will only be on a 46-second cooldown, which is really nice at the end of the game here. In the late game stages, which is about 25 minutes or so, let's say, that's just a number that I'm putting out there. In the late game stages, using this is extremely powerful because you're going to be able to keep enemies stunned for like 1.75 seconds, which is huge. When your whole team is behind you, they can do so much damage and they can't do anything about it. All in this huge radius here. And just like before, you want to try to catch people off guard as much as possible, and you'll be dealing heaps of damage to your objectives, and next you just have to win. As a general rule though, try to farm as much as humanly possible, get as many boxes of these as you possibly can, push out the lanes, and don't join team fights unless it is the late game or your team absolutely needs you. Now I really hope this helped you out if you're a beginner in the game. I know that I started playing not too long ago, but I do have that MOBA experience from the past. So hopefully this format of video will be useful to you. Let me know in the comments down below what would help for future videos in this series, what you want to see, and if this was useful at all. And leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I will see you on the next one. Owl out.